Just the News, I'm Amita Balachandra. We're going to start off with the Bharat Bandh that's been called by trade unions. It's day one against the central government's policies affecting workers, farmers, and people in general. Now, the decision comes following a meeting on the 22nd of March where the trade union said that they would protest against the centre's anti-worker, anti-farmer, anti-people, and anti-national policies. Now, bank unions are also participating in the protest against the government's plan to privatize public sector banks as well as the Banking Laws Amendment Bill 2021. Now, the joint union of the Central Trade Forum said that there is a Bandh-like situation in at least 8 states across the country. There were several reports about how essential services were hit across the country. For instance, Indian Express reported that there were rail and road blockades in various places in West Bengal by left parties earlier today. Hindustan Times reported that Kerala saw deserted streets, Bengal witnessed protests on train tracks, and the impact was felt in Punjab, Delhi, Andhra Pradesh, and Haryana as well. Meanwhile, the Kerala High Court has today directed the state government to issue an order restricting the government employees from participating in the 2-day nationwide strike. Now, the court also observed that it is illegal for the state government staffers to participate in the Bandh. Moving on now from the story to Birbhum violence and what's going on in West Bengal, 5 legislators of the Bharatiya Janata Party, including leader of the opposition Suvendhu Adhikari and the party's chief whip Manoj Tiga, were suspended by the speaker today until the next session of the assembly after members of the ruling Trinamool Congress and the opposition party engaged in a bit of a scuffle inside the house over the violence that took place in Birbhum's Boktoi village. Now, after the assembly session started, there were protests by the BJP demanding the resignation of Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, who also holds the home portfolio in the state. Now, the BJP MLAs trooped into the well of the house and started shouting slogans, post which the speaker repeatedly requested these MLAs to take their seat, but they continued their protest. After around half an hour, the MLAs, the ruling Trinamool Congress, also were involved in an altercation. Now, both sides are alleging that there was major scuffle, that there was beating up also that happened. These are the allegations by the TMC and the BJP. If I can just give you a bit of a background on what really happened in Boktoi village, at least 8 people, including women and children, were charred to death after Bhadu Sheikh, who is a deputy Pradhan owing allegiance to the TMC, was murdered on Monday, triggering attacks in the village. Now, 8 people died. That was the number that was reported yesterday. In fact, there's one other death that has happened today. The Calcutta High Court has ordered a CBI probe into the killings in Boktoi. Now, like I said, the number of people who've died has now gone up. The death toll in the Birbhum violence case has gone up to 9. Out of the 9 deceased, 7 are women and 2 are children. Now, a police officer told PTI, and I quote, the woman had nearly 65% burn injuries. Her condition deteriorated last night, following which she was put on ventilation in a medical college and hospital. She died this morning, end quote. Meanwhile, amidst this violence and all of the things that happened in the Legislative Assembly, West Bengal Governor Jagdeep Dhankar on Monday called on Union Home Minister Amit Shah at his residence in New Delhi. The agenda of the meeting, however, according to ANI, has not been disclosed yet. The meeting comes amid the ongoing row between Trinamool Congress and the BJP over the issue of Birbhum violence in the state of West Bengal. Our focus also continues on fuel price hike. Now, for the 6th time, fuel prices have been hiked in a matter of 7 days. Now, fuel prices have gone up by about 30 to 35 paise in this fresh increase that has taken place. With this, prices of fuel has been hiked over 4 rupees in the last 1 week or so. Now, state-run oil refiners such as Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum and Hindustan Petroleum revise the fuel rates on a daily basis by taking into account the crude oil prices in the international markets, and the rupee-dollar exchange rates. Now, the crude oil prices have risen drastically as well because of Ukraine crisis. A quick look at what it costs in different cities, starting off with Delhi. The chart is up on your screen. 99.41 rupees per litre. Petrol is what is costing in Delhi. In Mumbai, it's about 114.19 rupees per litre. In Chennai, it's 105.18 rupees per litre. And in Kolkata, it is 108.85 rupees per litre. So this is the price build-up of petrol in Delhi effective 16th March 2022. If you look at the chart there, the base price is at 47.99 rupees per litre, but a lot of the other costs come in from taxes. Excise duty is at 27.90 rupees per litre. Charges to dealers is at 48.24 rupees per litre. VAT is at 15.50 rupees per litre. All of this combined together is the petrol cost of Delhi as of 16th March was at 95.41 rupees per litre. But now petrol has gone up in Delhi because of these increases. It's at 99.41 rupees per litre. Moving on to our other big story now, an update in the hijab row in Karnataka. The All India Muslim Personal Law Board moved the Supreme Court today, challenging the Karnataka High Court's verdict over hijab ban. Basically, Karnataka High Court had upheld hijab ban in educational institutions. The board's petition said that the move will lead to discrimination against Muslims in general. Now, the plea said that laying too much emphasis on bringing uniformity in the uniform without accommodating a person of one religion to cover her hair with a piece of cloth is travesty of justice, and the judgment also ignores, according to the plea, the doctrine of reasonable accommodation. In the meantime, Karnataka Education Minister on Sunday appealed to students to let go of their ego and attend Class 10 exams. Class 10 exams have started today, but there were reports earlier that students weren't attending practical exams. This time, however, the Karnataka government has said that there will only be one chance for students to retake their exams as is norm, and they will not get a separate time schedule to retake their exams as well. There's a latest comment that's come in from the Karnataka Home Minister Araga speaking to PTI. He said, and I quote, "Everyone should obey the High Court order. Students have to remove hijab and write the exam." He also went on to say that action will be taken against students who violate the order. This is according to PTI. Meanwhile, a 25-year-old woman was arrested in Karnataka's Bagalkot district for allegedly posting a WhatsApp status celebrating Pakistan's Resolution Day, which is on the 23rd of March. Now, she was released on bail a day later, but the police said that her intention in posting the message and other aspects are still currently under investigation. Now, this is what had happened. She had put up a picture of a Pakistan Republic Day poster with a caption that read, and I quote, "May Allah bless every nation with unity, peace and wealth," end quote. Following this, a complaint was filed against her by one Arun Kumar Bhajantri. Now, his complaint reportedly states that the woman was, and I quote, "creating enmity between two communities by posting about Pakistan's Resolution Day." The case was subsequently filed under Section 153A and 505(2), which is statements promoting enmity between groups of the Indian Penal Code. Meanwhile, in a Facebook post, Bharatanatyam dancer Mansiya VP has alleged that a temple in Kerala's Thrissur district, which is under the state government-controlled Devaswam board, has barred her from a scheduled dance program on its premises for being a non-Hindu. Now, in the post, she said, and I quote, "One of the temple office bearers informed me that I cannot perform at the temple as I am non-Hindu. All stages are allotted based on religion, not considering whether you're a good dancer or not. In the meantime, I have been facing queries about whether I got converted into a Hindu after marriage. I have no religion and where should I go?" End quote. According to the Indian Express, the temple's board chairman Pradeep Menon has said, as per the existing tradition of the temple, only Hindus can perform within the compound of the temple. Moving on to politics right now, Delhi Assembly Speaker Ram Nivas Goel suspended 3 BJP MLAs, Anil Bajpai, Jitendra Mahajan and Ajay Mahawar. Now, they were suspended over alleged derogatory remarks made against Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. The MLAs were told to leave after they stood on the benches even as the Speaker requested them to sit down. Now, following this, the proceedings of the House were adjourned for 15 minutes. Also in the news, amid severe opposition, Union Minister of State for Home Ajay Mishra introduced the Criminal Procedure Identification Bill in the Lok Sabha today. Opposing the bill, Congress MP Manish Tiwari has said that the move is in derogation of both Article 20, Sub-Article 3 and Article 21 of the Constitution of India. He added that the bill was also beyond the legislative competence of the House. The bill seeks to authorize police to take measurements of convicts and other persons for purposes of identification and investigation of criminal matters. Meanwhile, three-time MLA Pramod Sawant was sworn in as the Chief Minister of Goa for the second consecutive term today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and other leaders were in attendance. In Punjab, the Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann has announced that the state government has decided to start doorstep delivery of ration for beneficiaries. Now, Mr. Mann said that the poor will no longer need to stand in queues as good quality ration will be delivered at that doorstep. However, the details of the scheme was not made available today. He said that it will be available shortly. On to another big story. It's day 33 of Ukraine crisis. Ukraine's deputy prime minister has said that Ukraine has no plans to open any humanitarian corridors to evacuate civilians from besieged cities on Monday. So she was talking about today. This comes amid intelligence reports warning of possible Russian provocations along the routes. Now, in the meantime, Russia is increasingly focused on grinding down Ukraine's military in the east in the hope of forcing Kyiv into surrendering part of the country's territory to possibly end the war. However, there's been no breakthrough between Russia and Ukraine so far. The Kremlin has said that talks between negotiators from Moscow and Kyiv have so far had no major breakthroughs on the conflict in Ukraine as the delegations prepare for a new round of talks in Istanbul. Now, the Kremlin also expressed concern after US President Joe Biden called the Russian leader Vladimir Putin a butcher over his military operation in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said Ukraine is prepared to discuss adopting a neutral status as part of a peace deal. He went on to say that sovereignty and retaining territory remained priorities. Now, the next round of face-to-face negotiations between Ukraine and Russia will take place this week in Turkey. In the meantime, Russia's foreign minister has said that a meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy to exchange views on the war in Ukraine right now would, in fact, be counterproductive. Now, a senior Ukrainian official accused Russia of irresponsible acts around the occupied Chernobyl power station that could send radiation across much of Europe and urged the United Nations to dispatch a mission to assess the risks. Now, Deputy Prime Minister has said that Russian forces were militarizing the exclusion zone around the station, site of the world's worst civil nuclear accident in 1986. In the meantime, the situation in Mariupol continues to remain worse because the mayor of the city has said that the city is under attack from Russian forces and it's on the verge of a humanitarian catastrophe. Now, a mayor has said that in the city, about 1.6 lakh civilians have been trapped without power and they need to be evacuated as soon as possible. He also alleged that the Russians are not allowing safe passage to them. Moving on now to business news. Shares of multiplex operators PVR and INOX Leisure hit their respective upper circuits in early trade today, surging to their 52-week highs. Now, this comes after both the companies announced their merger to create the largest multiplex chain in the country with a network of more than 1,500 screens. Moving on to international right now, amid severe economic crisis in Sri Lanka. Union External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met Sri Lankan President and Finance Minister today. After the meeting, he tweeted, and I quote, reviewed various dimensions of our close neighborly relationship, assured him of India's continued cooperation and understanding, end quote. Now, to give you a bit of a context, for the last 1.5 weeks, Sri Lanka has been facing a major economic crisis, but the impact of it is being seen for the last couple of weeks on ground, where an acute shortage of fuel and gas is being reported, along with essential foods and supplies. Now, it's also facing problems in paying for imports due to its foreign reserves being at an all-time low. Meanwhile, this bad news coming in from Afghanistan. AFP citing aviation officials reported that women in Afghanistan now cannot board flights unless accompanied by a male relative. Now, the Taliban have already banned intercity road trips for women traveling alone. There have been other restrictions as well. On Wednesday, we saw the Taliban ordered shutdown of girls' secondary schools hours after reopening them. In the meantime, the United Nations Security Council has expressed deep concerns over the Taliban government in Afghanistan banning girls from attending school above the 6th grade. On to sports news right now. Red Bull's Max Verstappen beat Ferrari's Charles Leclerc by just 0.549 seconds to secure his first win of the season at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Now, defending champion Verstappen overtook Leclerc with 4 laps remaining in the 50-lap race to claim his 21st career win. One more piece of positive news before we wrap things up here on this bulletin. PV Sindhu has become the second Indian female badminton player to win the Swiss Open title 2022. She defeated her Thailand counterpart. Now, Saina Nehwal was the first Indian woman having won in 2011 and 2012. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.